welcome into a special edition of your WCPO's Flying Pigskin podcast. I'm your host today, Mike Dyer. You normally see me on the High School Insider podcast, but as we said, a special edition as we're down to the Final Four in the NFL. Pleased to be joined today by Football 360 owner and former University of Cincinnati football staffer and longtime Anderson High School football coach, Vince Suriano. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
Well, glad to have you here, obviously. And as I mentioned, obviously, the conference championship games are this Sunday. A lot of news going around the NFL with coaching searches, and obviously the Bengals at the forefront of that right now. Our NFL sources have told WCPO's John Popovich that Zac Taylor, the Los Angeles Rams quarterbacks coach, will be named the Cincinnati Bengals head coach after the season. Obviously, the Rams are in the NFC Championship game this Sunday at the New Orleans Saints, so obviously the focus for Zac and the coaching staff there with the Rams is on being one step away from the Super Bowl. But wanted to get perspective about Zac's time, his one season as offensive coordinator at UC in 2016 with Coach Suriano. And Coach, tell me a little bit about being on that staff. Head coach Tommy Tuberville at the time for the Bearcats, and obviously you worked very closely with Zac Taylor. Tell us about that relationship and what kind of went on during that season.
Yes, when Zac came in, I had a discussion with him because Eddie Gran and Darren Hinshaw had left and gone to the University of Kentucky, who I had worked with for the first 3 years. So when Zac came in, I wasn't sure what my role would be. Definitely the director of high school and player relations, but I had the ability within that role to work with the offensive staff or defensive staff, and I had worked with the offensive staff for 3 years, and I had helped the wide receiver coach and the quarterback coach in those first 3 years. And then as Zac came in, I wasn't absolutely sure what my role would be. So, Zac and I sat down and talked, and I just told him what I had done previously with the University of Cincinnati offensive staff. And then he came back to me 2 or 3 days later after our discussion and meeting and told me that he would like me to continue working with the quarterbacks as I had done the third year with Darren Hinshaw, and he would like for me to, help him with the quarterbacks in any way that I could, whatever he needed done, with the whatever drills or whatever they needed done. And so I found Zac to be extremely knowledgeable about football and really pretty unique in the way he approaches the game. But he was extremely smart. So, our first month, everybody was out on the road recruiting. And then when after signing date, then we actually started in, what you would call the nitty gritty, where he had to start teaching us the offense. And that's when we got to see firsthand how really smart he was and how knowledgeable he was about offensive football.
Let's take a step back before we get into a little bit more about that and his football mind and kind of the things that you picked up from him. Tell us a little bit about how you became the high school and player relations administrator there at the University of Cincinnati and your relationship with Coach Tuberville, and kind of build that foundation before we get into other things about Zac.
Sure. I had been a high school football coach for 33 years, 23 of them as a head football coach. And then I went to Mount St. Joe as the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator at Mount St. Joe, and then I went to Thomas More for 1 year, and right after the season, around in January, they had hired Coach Tuberville in December, and I got a call in January. Actually, I was going home for my mother's 85th birthday at the time, and I got a telephone call from John Whittakin, and he said they were interested in starting a new position called Director of High School and Player Relations, and have that person either work with the offensive or defensive staff from a football aspect, and wanted to know if I would be interested. And I said, sure. He says, well, we'd like for you to come down and talk to Coach Tuberville. So I came down, and we had never met. I didn't know anybody on the staff, and I really liked Coach Tuberville. He's really really a good person, very folksy and unique, and a really warm person. And so we decided that I would work with the offensive staff and be the director of high school and player relations, because they had no one from Ohio. and they were basically all had Southern roots. And they needed what I thought at the time as someone that was older, that had some experience and knew the high school coaches throughout the state of Ohio. And they knew me. And so he felt that I was a fit for the job. And they offered it to me, and I took it, and away we went.
So again, your relationship with Zac Taylor started when you had that. Obviously, you had that option whether you go offense or defense, and you just kind of recited that story a little bit about after a couple of days, Coach Taylor said, "We're not going to make any change. You're going to be my guy in terms of the quarterbacks." Just kind of the day-to-day. You had meetings with him each day. How was he not only among the coaching staff but among his players? On the field and maybe in practice and maybe even off the field.
Okay, he's very personable. He's engaging. The thing I liked is the way he ran the meetings, in that everybody was involved. He is not the type that just stands up there and spits out knowledge. He asks a lot of questions. He wants to know what the players think. He's really a very good teacher of the way he approaches it in teaching on the whiteboard or through video study. And it was really unique how he taught us. Whenever he would teach us a play, he would teach us the play and the concepts and what you should do, what decisions you should make in the play. And then he would show us, basically we looked at 4 teams. He would show us the Miami Dolphins running the play. He would show us the Patriots, the Colts, and the Broncos. Those are the ones I remember he would teach the most. So he would let us see it run from 4 different teams. But he's really easy to approach, and if you have a suggestion, you can go to him, you can suggest something, and he's very receptive. He's not hard to get along with, and he listens to what the staff members have to say.
You were at Anderson High School from 1987 to 2007. You just told me here off camera about some of the concepts that Coach Taylor brought to the table that you thought, wow, a light bulb kind of went off in your mind in terms of you wish that you could go back and reteach some of those fundamentals or some of those offensive schemes to your players the way that Zac taught them. Can you give us kind of an illustration of how that kind of went with Zac?
Sure. He brought in some unique ideas, and as he started teaching us the offense and the way he taught it, I had never seen that before. And as he is teaching us, I thought, oh my goodness, I wish I would have known that as a high school football coach. I could have used this. And in fact, on some of the concepts, they were so adaptable to high school football that I did a video out in Monterey, California for Coach's Choice and explained these concepts. And, just a couple of them. One, when he would teach us the routes, he was teaching us routes, what you call 2x2 with 2 receivers on each side. And he would teach the routes, and they were identical on each side. They're called mirrored routes. And after he taught us 9 or 10 of those mirrored routes, he then taught us how to interchange them. And now instead of the players having to learn 40 or 50 new routes out of this, what you call 2x2 concepts with 2 receivers on each side, he just mixed one side with the other side, and he would just use a tag word, and all of a sudden now you have 90 to 100 different combinations. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I could have been a high school coach and taught 7 or 8 of these concepts and then mix and matched them, and I had over 50 different routes, but the players were only learning 7 or 8 or 9 different concepts. And it was just continually like that. There were unique and new ideas of how to do that. And the way that he used the running back was different. Most teams will have ways to get to the running back the ball in the passing game, maybe 3 to 4 ways. He had 7 or 8, and he called them halfback featured routes, where you had the ability to get the running back the ball in the passing game as the number 1 receiver. I thought that was different, and he changed the route depths. He didn't necessarily have to have a new play for 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 7. He just changed the depths of the routes by code words. And looking at it as a high school coach, coach and a D3 college coach, that would have really been a great way to teach our players that could have been very beneficial. So now, Mike, when I lecture high school coaches or I do consulting on that level and work with offensive coordinators throughout the city of Cincinnati in the Football 360 aspect, I try to teach them what I learned from Zac, in reference to that teaching mechanism.
Coach, do you recall during that season thinking, wow, this guy's really, he's working his way up the ladder. He's 32 years old at the time. I know it's probably hard for you to put your NFL hat on and say, you attribute a lot of the Rams' success to his, his presence on the coaching staff. Head coach Sean McVay has gotten a lot of credit, obviously, for this year. But where do you think he is on the ascension of the NFL ladder? Is this any surprise to you that he's apparently being the front runner for the Bengals head coaching position?
Not really. In terms of, I thought he was definitely on his way up. I did not think that he would be at the University of Cincinnati that long, regardless of what we did with our one-loss record. I just felt that he had so much knowledge that he would eventually be back in the professional football league and that he would continue to move up because he was just genuinely very smart. But not only that, Mike, is his ability to relate to players. He just has that personality that he makes them feel comfortable in the room, but he's teaching them. And they want to pay attention, and it's not like he is jamming knowledge down their throat. He is teaching them so that they can understand what I'm teaching you is really going to be helpful to you out on the field, and so that I thought was a huge plus with him.
How much does he love Cincinnati?
He likes it a lot. Like, I would ask him, when he was with the Miami Dolphins, I says, wow, I bet you it was hard for you to leave Miami to come back and be in the Midwest. And he says, no. He says, actually, I really like being in the Midwest. You have to remember, he played at Nebraska. He said, I really enjoy it. He says, I like the change of seasons. And he's really kind of a Midwest guy. I believe he grew up in Oklahoma, and then he played at Nebraska. And, so I think he likes this type of area. And I know he always said that he really liked Cincinnati. And I think that might have been one of the reasons why he was interested in this job, because he liked the area.
What about just in that one season on that UC coaching staff? Obviously, I mean, Zac, again, like I mentioned, 32 years old, one of the youngest guys probably in that meeting room. How did he relate to? You mentioned the other players, but what about the other coaches? Just personality-wise, just during the season, maybe even outside the field in the field of practice.
First of all, he was always open to suggestions. You could go to him with any kind of thought and bounce something off of him. But here's one of the things I learned. I could see this coming from the NFL. He was very departmentalized, whereas he figured that every coach that he had was a very good coach or they wouldn't be there, and he would give them particular assignments and duties that they needed to do within the offense, and then he would let them do it. So, for instance, the offensive line coach was in charge of formulating the run game. The wide receiver coach would have some segment, at the time Blake Rowland, that would have some segment in devising the passing game. Everybody kind of had their niche, and then we would come back into the staff room as an offensive staff, and then everybody would present what they had. Then we would, discuss it and then start integrating it into the game plan of how we were going to do it. But you could see that part of him coming from the NFL, because in the NFL, they are so knowledgeable and they have vast experience. Like a lot of guys that are assistants now in the NFL maybe were ex-head football coaches in the NFL. So you can give them an aspect of the game, whether it be offensively or defensively, and they're going to come up with something that's really pretty good.
I know you haven't coached in the NFL, but I'm just curious, how much do you think he knows about the media speculation regarding this Bengals head coaching position? Because you hear it all the time about coaches being so locked in, they don't even know what's going on in the outside world. They have no idea what's going on in the news. But still, how much do you feel like he's got to at least be aware of what people are saying about him coming back to Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think he is, and he will be, and now he is going to be focused at the task at hand. I mean, he will come in here and he will start out running, and that'll be his primary concern. But him having been in the NFL and having been with the Miami Dolphins, I think he understands the whole realm of that. And also, his father-in-law is Mike Sherman.
Sure.
So he is very aware of the setup and the whole scope of the NFL and the media relations and all that goes on. But he will still be focused on getting the football team where he wants them to be and how he is going to get them there. So that, yes, he will be aware of it, but I think that he's first and foremost going to be focused on the team and the coaching staff and what he has to do within that building.
Have you been able to stay in touch with him after that 2016 season?
We've texted back and forth a few times, but I've tried not to bother him too much. You know, every once in a while I would text him and see how he was doing or wish him good luck in a game, and then he would text me back and want to know how everything was going in Ohio, you know, and I want to know how the family was doing. So, like I said, he is very personable. He's unassuming. If he is never going to act like he's important. Even if he is not going to act like that. That just is not how he is. That's not his personality.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time and perspective today. And give us an update on what you're doing with Football 360. You do a great job on those Spectrum High School football broadcasts each and every Friday night during the fall. And it was always a pleasure to see you in the press box. But tell us what you're doing now with your consulting business and how you're training some of the area high school quarterbacks around.
Yes, when I retired from actual coaching, I retired at the end of the 2016 season at UC. I wanted to stay involved in football some way. So I started my own company called Football 360. And probably the biggest facet of it is I train high school quarterbacks in the off season. So I take them and the things that I learned as being a quarterback coach for 30 years and working in high school, Division III and Division I as a quarterback coach, and particularly some of the things that I learned from Zac Taylor. That was one of the reasons why I decided to stay on when Zac got hired, so I could learn the NFL aspect in terms of training quarterbacks, because I knew I was going to do that. Then along with that, I wrote a book called Developing an Offensive System for Football, published by Coach's Choice, and now I'm on the second one about developing a high school football program from A to Z. And then I do consulting, and I did five teaching videos for Coach's Choice. You know, so I'm staying pretty active and in the football world, and it's kept me busy, and I really like it, particularly the training of the high school quarterbacks, because you actually get to go out there and coach and teach. So, you know, I have a website, and people can get a hold of me, and I go from there.
Well, Coach, I know you haven't been coaching in the NFL, but hypothetical here. I mean, watching the Bengals, I'm sure you follow them, you watch them on TV. I mean, a coach like Zac Taylor, what could he bring to the table immediately? You mentioned he's just going to hit the ground running if he does come here to Cincinnati. But what do you think that offense could really use?
I think he's going to be very innovative. Mm-hmm. I think he's unique, innovative, intelligent, understand what his players can do and can't do, and he's very adaptable.
Again, thanks, Coach, for your time. We really appreciate it. This is Mike Dyer. Thanks for joining us.